Good evening, and welcome to Sky Tonight. The waning gibbous moon is currently rising late in the evening and riding high after midnight. It is located in Pisces with 82% illumination. Please enable captions in your preferred language to access local observing cities and times. Join us for a guided tour of tonight's whole sky. We start the evening with Venus halfway up the southern sky, followed by the Hercules cluster and the Ring Nebula almost straight overhead. As the night deepens, Albireo and Altair sit high in the southern sky, while the Alpha Capricornid's meteors streak across the darkness. Deneb appears almost straight overhead, and the Veil Nebula shines high in the southern sky before Mars rises near the eastern horizon. Toward morning, the southern Delta Aquarid's meteors appear, and Mercury emerges near the eastern horizon alongside Saturn halfway up the southern sky. Diftus stands high in the southern sky, and the double cluster glows high in the northern sky as the Perseids meteors continue to fall. The tour concludes with the moon crossings by satellites. Look halfway up the southern sky for Venus, a dazzling silver-white point that outshines every star. It is near greatest elongation and dominates the sky, though twilight may brighten the view in some regions. In Los Angeles, the planet culminates at 8:20 in the evening, while it reaches its greatest altitude in New York at 8:40 in the evening and in London at 9:30 in the evening, respectively. Venus is the brightest natural object in the night sky after the moon, so dazzling that it can cast faint shadows in truly dark places and is the single most common source of UFO reports. Search almost straight overhead for the Hercules cluster, one of the finest northern globular clusters. Aim your binoculars at a dim fuzzball on the west side of the keystone of Hercules. At 8:50 in the evening, the cluster is best placed in both Los Angeles and New York, whereas it peaks for observers in London at 9:30 in the evening. The gravitational binding energy of M13 is so powerful that even though individual stars move at speeds of several kilometers per second, none can escape the cluster's gravitational embrace. Almost straight overhead, aim a telescope midway between the two southern stars of the little parallelogram of Lyra. You will find the Ring Nebula, a pale ellipse of light hanging just below brilliant Vega. Around 11:05 in the evening, the nebula reaches its highest point for viewers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. The nebula's central white dwarf is so faint that it eluded observers for decades after the ring itself was found, and it was first reported around 1800 by the German astronomer Friedrich von Hahn. Find Albireo high in the southern sky at the foot of the Northern Cross in Cygnus. It is one of the loveliest color contrast double stars, visible to the naked eye as a golden yellow point. This star culminates around 11:40 in the evening for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Albireo shines at about magnitude 3, making it the fifth brightest star in Cygnus, and its light travels roughly 400 light-years across space to reach us. Look high in the southern sky for Altair, the bright heart of Aquila. It forms the low corner of the Summer Triangle, flanked by two fainter stars. For the cluster of cities comprising Los Angeles, New York, and London, this star reaches its greatest altitude around 12 midnight. Altair lies just about 17 light-years from Earth. This makes it one of the closest naked-eye visible stars and one of the best-studied objects of its kind. The Alpha Capricornid's meteors are active tonight, though only 3 days past their peak. Look halfway up the southern sky and let your eyes wander a bit off the radiant for the longest trails. Around 12:40 after midnight, the radiant culminates for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Deneb shines almost straight overhead at the top of the Northern Cross. This blue-white star marks one corner of the Summer Triangle and shines across a great distance. This star reaches its highest point around 12:50 after midnight for viewers in Los Angeles, New York, and London, remaining above the horizon all night in all three locations. Deneb lies about 2,615 light-years from Earth. This makes it the most distant first magnitude star visible to the naked eye in the entire sky. Tonight's deep sky object is the Veil Nebula, the lace-like wreckage of a star that exploded 10,000 years ago. Drop from Deneb down the wing of Cygnus to Epsilon Cygni to find this oxygen teal and hydrogen red structure. For the group of cities including Los Angeles, New York, and London, the nebula culminates around 12:55 after midnight. One arc of it is nicknamed the Witch's Broom, and the whole wreck stretches across 6 full moon widths of sky. In catalogs it is listed as NGC 6960. Mars is rising from the eastern horizon as an orange-red point in Taurus. It is visible to the naked eye as a steady, unblinking light. 2:30 in the morning marks the rise of the planet in Los Angeles, 2:14 in the morning marks its rise in New York, and 1:35 in the morning marks its rise in London. Mars has polar ice caps composed of water ice and frozen carbon dioxide, which play a crucial role in regulating the planet's climate and contain valuable resources for future human exploration. We now turn to the crossings of Phobos and Deimos across the disk of Mars. Phobos begins its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 54 minutes. In Los Angeles, this transit occurs between 9:10 in the morning and 10:04 in the morning with Mars above the horizon. In New York, it happens between 12:10 in the afternoon and 1:04 in the afternoon as Mars is above the horizon. In London, the crossing runs from 5:10 in the afternoon to 6:04 in the evening while Mars stands above the horizon. The second Phobos crossing of the apparent disk of Mars proceeds for 55 minutes. Mars is below the horizon for Los Angeles, New York, and London. Deimos starts its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 84 minutes. In London, this event takes place between 2:09 in the morning and 3:33 in the morning with Mars above the horizon. Mars is below the horizon for Los Angeles and New York. Phobos continues with its third crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 54 minutes. In New York, the transit occurs between 3:29 in the morning and 4:23 in the morning as Mars is above the horizon. In London, it happens from 8:29 in the morning to 9:23 in the morning while Mars stands above the horizon. Mars is below the horizon for Los Angeles. The southern Delta Aquarid's meteors are active tonight, 3 days past their peak. Look halfway up the southern sky and let your eyes wander a bit off the radiant for the longest trails. Around 2:50 in the morning, the radiant reaches its greatest altitude for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Mercury is rising from the eastern horizon as a naked-eye object in Gemini. Look low near the horizon to spot this bright point of light. It climbs highest in Los Angeles at 4:36 in the morning, then the best moment moves to New York at 4:23 in the morning, and on to London at 3:52 in the morning. Mercury hides an enormous iron core that fills roughly 85% of the planet's radius, the largest core relative to size of any planet in the solar system. Look halfway up the southern sky for Saturn, a steady, unblinking golden point in Pisces. It is fainter than Jupiter, but its calm yellow glow gives it away, though twilight may brighten the sky in some regions. Around 5:05 in the morning, the planet culminates in both Los Angeles and New York, while it reaches its greatest altitude for viewers in London at 4:40 in the morning. Unlike most planets, Saturn would float in water if you could find an ocean large enough to hold it. The planet's density is so low that it's less dense than water. Follow the eastern side of the Great Square, extended south, to find Difta. This bright star is one of the 50 brightest in the night sky and sits high in the southern sky. This star reaches its highest point around 4:45 in the morning for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. The shared naming connection between Difta and Fomalhaut, as the first and second frog, is a rare example of how two stars far apart in the sky can be linked by a common, ancient naming tradition originating from the same linguistic culture. The double cluster is a binocular gem located high in the northern sky. Look for a hazy patch between Perseid and the W of Cassiopeia, set beside the Milky Way. In Los Angeles, the cluster culminates at 5:30 in the morning while remaining above the horizon all night. It peaks at 5:15 in the morning in New York while staying above the horizon all night, and it reaches its greatest altitude at 4:40 in the morning in London while remaining above the horizon all night. The double cluster was recorded more than 2,000 years ago, appearing in the star catalogue of the Greek astronomer Hipparchus around 130 BC. The Perseids meteors are active tonight, building to their peak in 10 days. Look high in the northern sky and let your eyes wander a bit off the radiant for the longest trails. 5:30 in the morning is the moment the radiant is highest in Los Angeles while remaining above the horizon all night. 5:15 in the morning is the moment it is highest in New York while remaining above the horizon all night, and 4:40 in the morning is the moment it is highest in London while remaining above the horizon all night. On this night, 8 satellites cross the moon's disk, and of those, 5 tracks pass close to towns and settlements. Every one of those is being presented. The Hubble Space Telescope makes its first crossing of the night, and for an observer standing on the narrow ground path, the crossing of the disk takes only about 1 second. The ground path runs from over the open Indian Ocean at 9:05 in the evening to near Pontianak at 10:39 in the evening. The second crossing of the night is made by the Hubble Space Telescope, which crosses again. The ground path runs from north of Bigua at 9:18 in the evening to near Upper Gilgil at 11:21 in the evening. The third crossing of the night is made by the Hubble Space Telescope, which crosses again. The ground path runs from near San Jose del Guaviare at 9:35 in the evening to over the Amazon basin at 10:36 in the evening. The fourth crossing of the night is made by the Hubble Space Telescope, which crosses again. The ground path runs from west of Gode at 9:44 in the evening to over the open Indian Ocean at 11:47 in the evening. The fifth crossing of the night is made by the Hubble Space Telescope, which crosses again. The ground path runs from near Grand Bassam at 9:52 in the evening to south of Oyem at 10:55 in the evening. The solar eclipse is coming soon. Follow Sky Tonight for details. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have clear skies on your next outing. Come back tomorrow for the next nightly sky guide.